Hello and welcome to another video, a much overdue video. It's ages since I've done one. Here we are in the UK, we're in lockdown as so many people are across the world as a result of the pandemic. We've been in lockdown for exactly a month. It's actually the 1st of February 2021 at the moment. So we're in our third lockdown and good Lord, it's almost a year that this pandemic has been going on. Horrific. But I trust you are all well and keeping safe. Yeah, so sorry I haven't done any vids, but it's been a funny old year, to say the least, and a tragic one as well. But there we go. What can I say? Other than the fact that what people really need is to see an idiot build an electronic kit. Well, here's the idiot. He's the one behind the camera, which he's shaking, which he shouldn't do. And here's the kit. And it's something that we all need in our lives, I think. It is a Velleman running Microbug, which quite clearly is incredibly important to everybody's lives. I mean, if you haven't got one of these in your life, what's the point? Yeah, there we go. So let's have a look here. What does it say? It says attractive, bright coloured bug-shaped miniature robot. The Microbug is always hungry for light and travels towards it. Features 2 open chassis sub-miniature motors. Lovely. Adjustable light sensitivity for a very wide luminous intensity range, enables the user to control its bug-like behavior. Okay. LED eyes indicate driving direction, and it stops in total darkness. Well, nothing unique about that because I do the same, but never mind. So that's what we're going to build. It's a Velleman kit, which is manufactured in the EU, which obviously makes it expensive. It's not one of these nicely priced Banggood kits that I normally get. However, we're going to build this one. Soldering is required, which is a good thing because that means I can play with my my latest toy, which I'm desperately now trying to bring into frame so you can see it. I say it's a latest toy. I'll be honest with you, I've had it a while now, but hang on a minute, I need to unplug it from its oh god. Nice to be prepared for a video, isn't it? I wouldn't know. So there we go. It's a new soldering station from Hanmatech, the SD2, covered in dust, because I've actually had it quite a while, which just proves how long ago it was since I did a video. I've used it for a few repair jobs, but it is really nice. It wasn't particularly expensive. It's there you go, Hanmatech SD2. I got it from Amazon in the UK, as indeed I got this running Microbug. So if I can find links to both of these, I will do. But it was, to say, a while ago that I actually bought them. So whether they're still available up now or not, I don't know. But I will check it out. But at any rate, that's what we are going to build today. So let's get rid of the soldering iron station, and we can have a look at that in a bit more detail as we use it. I'm making an absolute hash of everything at the moment. But there we go. So probably the first thing to do is to open up the kit, take out that staple. Not that it wants to come out, but there we go, that's it out. Slide off the back, and we have many parts. Let's take that all out and get rid of the packaging. Don't think we need that. Does it have instructions? Oh, it does. It has many instructions inside the cardboard doodah. English: important environmental information about this product. Do not let microbugs loose in the wild because they'll breed, no doubt. I won't bother reading that. Oh, right, now it's telling you to be careful of the polarity of those transistors. LDR1. Oh, that might, is that that might be the light emitting diodes, I would have thought. Watch the polarity. Okay, we'll watch the polarity. And then it's got some fairly nice instructions on how to build it. Whether I should bother following them or not remains to be seen, but I suppose that's probably the decent thing to do. I don't know what... That looks like a ladybird, or our American friends will call a ladybug. But there isn't a covering for it, and it does describe it as a what does it call it? Attractive, bright coloured, bug-shaped miniature robot. Well, attractive, light coloured will suggest it's got some sort of casing, which is in the shape of a... Well, this would suggest a ladybird, but no, nothing there. Never mind. So that's what it looks like at the end. Whether we can actually get it that way remains to be seen. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out all the components, get the soldering iron fired up, and we'll start putting this beastie together. Right, okay, so we've got all the components laid out. Let's see what we've got. We've got a couple of actually fairly chunky motors. They certainly feel chunky. There's two of those. That's going to be one for each leg. We'll see as that develops, as mad as it is. A couple of variable pots. I suspect they're for varying the sensitivity of these two, what I guess are light emitting diodes. So therefore they're going to be measuring light intensity and moving towards it, or I don't know how it's going to work. A couple of bog standard LEDs, a plastic doodah for something which I haven't quite worked out. I'm sure that will come into sense in a minute. We've got a nut, a bolt, and a retaining washer, or an anti vibration washer, which is clearly going to be needed for this, and that holds the battery compartment onto the PCB. Goes in there. That's the PCB, by the way, all through hole, straightforward enough. We have got two types of transistor, BC557Cs and BC547Cs. I don't know what they do either. I know kind of what a transistor does, but those values mean nothing to me. A couple of plastic pegs, which will actually act as the handles, if you want, for a better description, for the pots. We have two resistors here, which are, I believe, 250k, and then a bunch of 100k resistors, and a fairly thick, heavy piece of wire. More on that later as we go through the build. All very interesting. So those are all the components. All this bit here is, which looks like somebody's made some resistors without actually putting the resistors on them. These bits of wire are going to be used as jumpers. I think probably associated with the motors, but not 100% sure on that yet. So the first thing to do is to sort out all of the resistors, and you'll see here it tells you that resistor 1, 2, 4, 5 is 100k, and resistors 3 and 6 are 220k. So let's get those populated onto the board. I haven't even fired up the iron yet, actually. I lied when I said I'd do that. So starting off with the 100k. Right, so R1, let's find R1. Where's R1? I hope you can still see stuff on this. There we go, there's R1. And what I just do is just bend them a little bit like that, push them through the eels like that, and then just splay the legs out a bit. And that should be down to the board okay. So that was R1. R2 is the next one. Where's R2? R2D2? No, R2. Okay, so where's R2? There it is. It's the one staring me in the face. R2. There we go. And again, just push those down to the boards, splay the legs out, that holds it in. Some say you shouldn't do that because it can put stress on the components. Well, if this was part of the space shuttle or SpaceX, then I would probably take a bit more care, but funnily enough it isn't. Okay, so here we go. R4's next. R4, where's that? There it is. R4. So you get the idea what I'm doing here. I'm just going to lay out all the resistors and then just put a blob of solder on each one. And that's all the resistors done. So the last 10k, no, 100k I think it is R5, which lives just there. I'm conscious of the fact I may be coming in and out of the camera a bit. So I must not do that. There we go. So you get the idea. I'm going to put the other two resistors in, which are 220k, and do the same with those, and then start soldering all these points up. Right, okay. Let's fire up the soldering iron. There we go. And that's set at 200. It should be more than that. I think I have it. You can see how fast it's heating up. I mean, that is just brilliant. My old, that's 200. I think that's a little bit too weak. I think I had it about 340 before. I don't know what the optimum temperature is. You can see it's now heating up to the temperature I've just set. And that's nice and fast. And it reckons it's at 340 already. Now, I really don't know what the correct temperature is. I have done a bit of research on that, and for what I'm doing here, 340 would not seem unreasonable. So let's see how we get on. Okay, so we've got a bit of solder here. I normally like to try and do everything through a magnifying glass because my eyesight is crap. Not to put too fine a point on it. Right, here we go. Right, let's see if we can let's clean the tip of that soldering iron and start blobbing solder. Like that. Yes, that was not. I don't know whether that was too hot or too cold. Let's try it again. It seems to be heat sinking a bit on the pads. Might be all right. Did I have it hotter? Perhaps it was 360 I had it at. I don't know. That does seem to be fighting me a little bit to melt, but then it goes, well, that's all right. I do wonder whether it actually does heat up as fast as that unit says, to be brutally honest. But it certainly heats up a lot faster than my old iron did. Although I had that iron, oh God, it's got to be probably 30 years, and it's still working. But I thought, well, treat yourself to a new one. And I'm glad I did. This is a really nice iron. As I say, the main benefit is the speed with which it heats up. There we go. Running out of solder there. It is taking a lot of solder. But I won't worry too much about that, because there's one thing I'm not sure of is solder. Right. Let's do the rest of these resistors. And it probably doesn't help too much that I've got a fairly fine point on this this iron. It does come with a selection of different points. In fact, let's finish this and I'll show you what it comes with. Are you still seeing all of this? Oh, I'm not sure that's in focus. I am sorry. That wasn't in focus. That was useless, wasn't it? I shall have to remember that. I'm using my... I did have a little iPad mini thing which I was recording on before, but now I'm using an iPhone. The iPad mini got donated to a more deserving cause, so I'm now using the phone. Right. There we go. Trying to... I've always got the problem of looking through the camera, which is looking through the magnifying glass, which is trying to wobble, and it's all very stressful, isn't it? Okay, let's do this as quickly as we can and move on to more interesting stuff. I think that might be all of them. I think that is all of them. So let's get out the snippers and get rid of all the unwanted leads. In fact, these, as I said, it gives you a load of leads, these things, to act as jumpers, but considering the amount of lead cut off that you get from the other components, you would have thought that would have done, but it might be different gauge wire as well. It does feel a bit thicker, so well, I don't know what sort of current draw it is. Can't be a great deal, so let's get these all cut off. That was two. Was that bridging? I was wondering if I bridge those two connections. No, I haven't. But a little bit close. As I say, it does take a lot of solder. It seems to take a lot of solder. There we go. So I think that's good enough. Yeah. So let's have a look at the different tips that you get with this soldering iron. Oh, come out! Bloody hell! Right, so that's the one I'm using at the moment. So it's quite a fine tip, which I do prefer. Although I think this particular board does sort of suck up the heat a bit, and then the extra tips it comes with are these. So you've got like a blade and a flat end and a slightly chunkier tip, and almost like a screwdriver type shaped tip. Not used any of these yet, but it looks like it's just pull off the old one and plug on the new one, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we'll looking to use those perhaps a little bit more sensibly when we decide to do other kits that might benefit from a different size tip. Okay, so let's move that out of the way, put a little bit more light on the subject. So there we go, that's the resistors, they're all in. I've actually installed all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all together. I think that was right. So that was 4 100Ks and 2 220s, and the 2 220s go there. No, they go there and there. No, they don't. Where do they go? I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, have I? Oh, that's resistor 1, so I need to double check I've got everything in the right place. I haven't screwed that up, have I? So R3 and R6 is where the 220s go. So now I've got the components and I can't see what it says on the board. Yeah, so that's R6, that one's R6, so that's a 220. And what was the other one? R3. God, dear, oh dear. Memory like a sieve. Where's R3? I think that's R3. Yeah, that's R3, so it's that one. So it's those two. So, okay, that's cool. So all the resistors are in. The next thing they recommend you do is LDR, which in our language is, well, my language anyway, is the what I call photoelectric cells, although they probably aren't. Where's the other one? Everything keeps on sticking to these motors because they're magnetics. Get those out of the way. Those motors are a pain in the arse. Right, so we have two what I'm calling light emitting diodes. One with a long lead, well, both with a long lead and both with a short lead. And one is the cathode and one is the anode, I assume. If that's how they work. Is it cathode and anode for something like that? I don't know. Was it? Is it more emitter and I don't know. Any rate, so here we go. Emitter and collector. Are they a form of transistor? I don't know. I just build things. So that's why they have instructions like this for people like me who haven't really got a clue what they're doing. Okay, so LDR1 and LDR2, and what we're seeing here is the board, and you can see C and E. And C is the short lead and E is the long lead. So short lead, so it will go like that. And short lead again, it will go like that. Those side. Now, what I'm not sure is, and that's interesting, it shows on the diagram that you actually put right angles down to the board. But obviously there's something changed here, because that, to me, is a photoelectric cell. What I would call a photoelectric cell. But these look like white LEDs, which, I don't know, it's the same principle, I have no idea. But that aside, I wanted to know, yeah, see, there you go. Photoelectric cells, that's not what we've got. What we've got is these things. Let's even get a bit closer. Yeah, there you go. That's what we got. Don't know what they are. But I'm assuming that we bend them down like they have done with the picture here. So they're kind of at 90 degrees, as is suggested in the diagram, like that. So that's what I'm going to do. So there we go. We're going to try and bend them around roughly 90 degrees like that. Do the same with the other one, roughly like that. Does that look all right? I know not. Focus. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer in. Why not? Okay. Let's chuck a shed load more solder at this beastie. Like that. Yeah, it doesn't flow round the entire pad, as again, it's probably because the tip of the soldering iron is a bit on the small side, so never mind. So that's that one. And we shall do this one. There we go. I like to make sure that the copper pads are fully covered with solder. My theory is that it's likely to suggest a good contact, if nothing else. So there we go. So that's the two LEDs, or light emitting diodes, or whatever. Not exactly uniform, but they'll do. So what's the next thing? The next thing is, according to this, the switch. That will be exciting. Now, where's the switch? Here we go. We have the switch with 3 pills, and quite easily it just goes on there like that. No dramas there. So what I shall do is grab myself a little bit of solder on the end of the iron and trap. The lighting here is not great, is it? But hang on a minute. Let's see if I can just trap one of the pins in just for now, temporarily. And that didn't do very good. Come on. Yeah, that'll do. And let's see if I can improve the lighting a bit. That better? There we go. Now I can't see a bloody thing. I'm blinding myself. Right. Okie dokie. So this is a nice easy one. Just 3 blobs for the switch. I'm thinking that the this one doesn't do anything. Because that's where the track is. So I'm guessing that this one doesn't do anything, but I don't know if it's a double-sided PCB. I can't imagine it is. More than a simple. Yeah, it's going to be single layer, isn't it? Any road up, we have a switch. So that's okay. Don't even really need to clip the pins on that. We can remove that. Transistors are next. And they tell you here where each one goes. Transistor 1 is a 54.7, 2 is a 55.7, 54.7 for 3, and 55.7 for 4. And the orientation is going to be quite easy. So let's find a, what's this one? This is a BC547. So BC547 goes in T1. So let's find T1. There we go. T1 is there. And you can see the shape is exactly the same as the transistor, so you know the orientation. Can't get that wrong. Base collector and emitter are what the 3 pins are called. And yeah, I kind of know what they do. I kind of know between PNP and NPN transistors. But I'm not going to explain it because I'm not clever enough. And there are people all over YouTube who will be able to explain this sort of stuff far better than I will ever be able to explain it. I just like making the kits. So there we go. And the way I do a transistor, like, oh, careful, don't bend it too much. You could break a leg off. If you break a leg off, then you're in trouble. Right, and in a similar way, just bend the legs down like that. That isn't very pretty, that one, but it will do. So there you are. You can see the orientation like that. And that's the way all 4 of the transistors are located. T1, T2, T3, T4. So they're easy enough. So I'm going to do those. You don't need to watch me doing that because that's just boring. As if you're not bored already. That'll just make it even worse. So I'm going to get on and do that. Right, well, it's a few days later because of, well, life. And so let's carry on with this build. So this is where we are so far. We've got the switch in, we've got the transistors in, we've got the resistors in. And next thing to do is I'm going to put in these variable pots. And you can see I'll put in the little plastic peg, which allows us to control it. I'm assuming that this, oh, I think I've gone and bend that pin, haven't I? Oh, I might not have done. I'm assuming that this controls the speed of each of the electric motors. But any road up, they go in there like that, in that orientation, all fairly straightforward. So let's just start off putting the, I wonder if I can, yeah, that might be a little bit better for you. Make sure we're in focus. and let's start soldering. What have I gone here? I'm doing the wrong one. That doesn't help much, does it? So let's get the potentiometers in there. Still struggling to cover the pads properly with solder. I think I might have to change these tips as I was mentioning before. There we go. That's one, that's two. I think the iron was a bit cold. I've only just switched it on. It does heat up very, very quickly, this iron, but even then I'll probably need to leave it a little bit longer than I did before. Just checking. I should have actually pushed that in a bit when I did it, but it's okay. That's fine. It's in there nice and solid. And do the second one. Very, very straightforward. The pins aren't particularly long, so you don't even need to crop them at the end after you've fitted them. Let's see if I can do this one a bit more sensibly. And I'm running out of solder. Well, not running out of solder. I'm running out of solder on the one I've got at the moment. So let's get a new bit. Right. Iron, and all I'll do is just solder this one there like that, and then just check. This is what I should have done with the other one. Just check the orientation, make sure it's about right. Heat that up again, putting pressure on the pot just to make sure it's all the way down. Not quite all the way down. That's a bit too much now. Just trying to level it up with the other one to make it look nice. There we go. Make things look nice. And solder the other 2 points in. Running out of solder on that bit. New bit of solder. And that's it. That's the 2 pots installed. And they can be adjusted like that. As I say, I think it's the electric motors that are, all the speed of the motors, which is controlled by those pots. I don't know that, but that'd be my guess. Right, what's next? I think the next thing is this diode and this piece of plastic. And what does that do? Well, this is actually quite clever, I think, or well thought out. You'll see on the instructions just here, and I think, is that flickering, that light? Let's see if I can stop that happening. No, it might be. I've got LED lights here. Oh, that's a bit better. I've got LED lights here, so it's messing up the frame rate of the camera. Right, so as you can see here, you've got your plastic cylinder there. You've got your diode here, and the diode goes inside the plastic cylinder like that. And then you can see here that it goes in this gap on the board, and that's the position of the diode. So you can see here that the diode has got a little band on it there, and that needs to match up with the band on that, so it goes in that way like that, and then you put the cylinder on it like that, and then we just need to bend the legs down a bit, and this needs to go, well, I don't know actually, which way does this need to go? Let's have a look at the, yeah, it needs to go underneath. So it needs to be underneath the board, not on top like all the other through-hole components. Let's see, I'll put this in like that. And I would think we need to be fairly careful in centering it. You can probably work out what's going on here. This is basically a wheel for the back of the robot. And it will act, because the front legs from that, which will be attached to the motors, will make it bounce around and it can move freely. And it's using the diode as an axle. I think it's quite well thought through. Hang on, that leg's not gone through. That's not going to work. It needs to be like that. So, if I can get this as even as possible. Probably don't want to do it up too tightly. Let it flex about a bit. I can go in a little bit deeper, like that. I can go in a bit more. I would say that would do. And you say it's, is that going to work? Or does it need to go down? I think it needs to go down a little bit more, actually. Just to get a bit more clearance from the board. Probably about like that. That's not particularly level, is it? I don't think it's overly critical because it's so floppy in there. It doesn't really matter as long as it's not going to catch up on the board. I'd say that was probably good enough. So let's just solder one side, and then we can adjust it afterwards. Now, hang on a minute. This isn't going to work. How do I? Oh, well, okay. So I shall have to solder it like this, and that's going to be a little bit too high up because the legs are sticking down. A bit fiddly is this. Just want to make sure it's not too high up. It's hardly precision engineering, is it? But I seem to be getting a little bit OCD on it. There we go. Right, let's just solder one side. So it's then in position, and we can just adjust it a little bit if we need to. It's moving about all over the place now. That will do just for the moment, just to hold it there. And if I'm going to bring a bit more light in without making the camera go silly bees. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, so this one wants to bend down just a little bit. It's probably a little bit too close to the... Yeah, that will do. I think that will be fine like that. And it just needs to be loose enough to roll about. That's all it is. Nothing sophisticated. Right, so let's solder this in properly. I've done that side, half of that side at any rate. And let's just make sure I've got the orientation of the diode right before I commit. Right, so the diode band needs to be this side. And can I see it now? Yeah, well, it's not on this side, so it obviously is on the other side, so fair enough. You get what I mean. Right, so let's solder this. There's quite a big pad here for solder to go onto. You don't need to solder the whole lot. Put a little bit more on this side. It's not as if it's carrying a massive amount of weight. And yeah, I think that'll do actually. And yeah, there we go. So using the diode as an axle for the rear wheel. Clever. Let's snip off these excess bits. And there we go, that's the rear wheel. And that works fine. Okay, cool. What's next? Well, what are we moving on to next? Yeah, now, what we have to do next is use some violence on the electric motors. And the reason that we need to do that is that the motors are actually soldered to the board. If you look underneath, what we have here are some copper strips there, and there. They're not contacts, they're just copper strips, and the side wall of the motor will be soldered to these strips. But before you can do that, you need to get a file to roughen up the the sides or the walls of the electric motor, because that will give the solder something to key onto. Otherwise it will be too smooth. So that's what I'm doing here, and it tells you to do that on the instructions. So where is it? There you go. A little image of a file, and you just file the edges to scratch it up a bit, and that will be enough, like I've done there, to give the solder something to key onto. Like that. And so that's one not to be done, not done yet. So again, apply some violence. That's probably enough. Now, the next thing to do is to actually position the motors. So if we're looking from underneath, you can see here in the instructions, the legs are pointing down, so we need to get the motor. So we've got this one here like that. So you want one of the motors to be like this. Now, they don't actually specify the angle or anything, and I'm guessing it doesn't matter too much. I don't know, actually. Or does it? At how much of an angle does the motor be? Well, one of the things we can do, yeah, we can have a look at the back of this one, or the picture. Well, you're not seeing that, the picture. You can see that the motor is actually kind of like that. Yeah, like that. So this can actually be quite fiddly. So what I'm thinking, let me grab a piece of blue tack. So what I'm going to do, and you can see the red dot on the motor is important. And it tells you here because the red dot is next to the negative terminal. But if we just copy what it is on the photograph on that particular motor there, which is our first one to look at, then it goes like that. Now, I've got to solder it in. I think what I'll do is that, yeah, just bring it over the lip of the PCB like that. So I'm going to do it like that. Possibly bring it down a little bit, perhaps up to the nylon plastic rear cover of the motor, and that'll probably be about right, is my guess. So about there. So I'm going to try and hold that into position and then get this dirty great piece of blue tack, and that will hold the motor in position while I solder it. Well, that's the idea anyway. So let's get back into focus again. Bring the light in. Everything, the lighting in here is not great. Okay, so we've got our roughened up. The side of the motor is all rough, so we just need to solder around here. So let's give that a go. Now, I think this might be interesting again with my thin-tipped soldering iron. The wall of that motor is going to act as a bit of a heat sink, so this could be interesting. I'm trying to get trying to get the solder to take, but we'll give it a go. I'm sure it will do. I'm also using very thin solder, so that probably isn't helping much. But let's put a right old rare lump of solder in there, like that, and see if we can get it to key onto the motor. It's not going to have any trouble keying onto the copper strip. What's that like? Now, whether that's taken or not, I don't know. But let's do the other side, and hopefully between the two of them that will be strong enough. I've actually got my blue tack in the way a bit there. It's going to hold my iron there for a good while, because that will heat up the side of the motor as well, which is what we need it to do to help key to the wall of the motor, which I think it's doing. Now, there may be a much better way of soldering things like this, but if there is, I haven't got a clue what it is. I think I need to put a bit more this side. I'm getting tangled up in my iron here. Right, again, let's give it a good old lump of heat. And see if I can get this to key as much as possible to the side of the motor, which is what we want. As I say, a larger tip on your iron than the one I've got would probably be a bit more successful, but we'll see. So let's have a look. That's what it looks like on that side, and that side. Let's remove the blue tack, and yeah, that's in there pretty solid. That's fine. Oh, it's red hot though. That should be okay. Hopefully I haven't damaged the motor by putting that amount of heat on it. I probably think not. So that's one of the motors in. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same with this motor, and once I've done that, I shall come back to you. Right, well, that's both motors installed, and you can see the orientation there. The instructions show you, so if I put it in the same orientation as the instructions, which is kind of like that, get a bit more position. It says that the positive terminals on the motors need to be there and there, and because the red dots represent the negative there and there, that means the positives are there and there, just like that. And so yes, that's good. And you can also see on the board that the orientation is marked for positive like that. So the next thing to do, before I wire up the motors, no, actually I think I'll wire up the motors now. That would make sense. This is where these guys come into play. Now these are fairly stiff bits of wire. Let's get them out of there. Let's just take one out. And these are basically the links to power up the motors. So let's start off by putting one in there on the positive for that motor, and then thread. Now this is probably a stupid way of doing it. Hang on a minute, start again. Right, let's just bend that a little bit like that. Put one in there, and then thread that one through like that. So that will be the positive connection for that motor, like that. Let's try and I'll do it from this side like that, and start off by soldering that connection there. And that didn't take. Yeah, there we go. And all this stuff here, by the way, that is blue tack. When I was holding in the other motor, I got a bit sticky there. Never mind. So what are we left with? We are left with that terminal there. So let's solder that in. Like that. And then snip off the excess. And there we go. That's that terminal in. Lovely. So I'm going to do the same for the other four, and once I've done that, we'll take a look. Right, there we go. That's the motors all wired up. As you can see, just with those bits of connecting wire and the orientation of the red dots for the motors. And let's have a look underneath. And the motors are pretty firm in there, which will be bolstered to a certain degree by the connectors, because these are quite firm wires, so that's good. The motors spin freely. That's good. Let's check. Yep. And yep. So next thing to do is the two LEDs. Now I left these to last because they look like the Microbug's antennae, like that. And you could almost say that the photoelectric cells are its eyes. Let's not get too sophisticated about it, but there you go. And the polarity of these LEDs is important. You've got a long lead and you've got a short lead, and the short lead is the cathode, the long lead is the anode, and the cathode will go in that hole there where you've got the black band, and the same on the other side, so he's going to go in like that. Let's just get those two in there. We'll leave it fairly... Ooh, let's just balance that in there like that. Can you see? Yeah, just about. And blob of solder there, blob of solder there. Excellent. And we want to do the same with the other side. Short wire goes in, or short leg goes into the band, like that. Let's try and keep it roughly the same length as the other one if I can. And that's about right. That'll do. Close enough. So solder up the legs, can you see? Yes, you can. We're getting very close to having this finished. There we go. Crop off the excess. And the next thing to do is to bend the antenna out a bit like that. Just give it a bit of a... Another bend like that, possibly a little bit more. Yeah. There we go. Something like that, no doubt. They're only going to flash, they don't do anything, I think. We will find out. Right, so that's that. So what's the next thing to do? I think at this point, we will install the battery box. And the battery is just simply held in with a nut and bolt. Nothing more sophisticated than that. And we've got the hardware for that here. So let's screw this all down. Feed the wires out the back. You can see there's a bit of a... Hang on, let's try and tidy this up a bit. So we've got the wires going through the cutout on the bottom of the case there, so it can sit flush on the PCB like that. Put the retaining washer in there, so hopefully it doesn't come loose. I'll probably need to tighten that down with some pliers, but I haven't got any. Shouldn't really use my snippers for this. Just to tighten it down a bit. How's that? That will do for now. I'm going to leave the leads of the battery box. I mean, the neatest thing to do is to snip them off, and then you put the black wire through there and red through there and solder it up. But I'm not going to cut them short because sometimes you might want to cannibalise some of your projects and use parts off of them, and therefore I'm going to leave the wires as they are in case I need a battery box for a different project in the future that I would regret cutting the wires short on. So we'll leave it like that and wire the two connectors in. That's that one. That's that one, so that's a positive soldered in, and the negative. Let's bend that back a bit. These wires, incidentally, are pre-tinned, i.e. they've got a little bit of solder on there already, so that just makes life a bit easier when you're doing the final connection like that. And that will do that, I think. Right. And the matter those are sticking up like that, that's not a problem. Okay, final thing is where this bit of very stiff wire comes into play. And I haven't quite got my head around this, but it shows you the wire where basically you're cutting off part of the sleeve of the wire, because that's the bit that you want, and then that sleeve is going to be used. Let me cut a bit off. I don't have any proper wire cutters. I must get some. Was that any good? So there we go. We've got a sleeve, part of the wire there. And I'll do the same on the other end. Now I think it says 5mm. There we go. So that's our two legs. Now I need to measure these. It says 5mm, but that seems awfully short. But perhaps that's all you need. which, so what's that, 5mm? I think it is. Okay, well it says 5mm, and I'm just going to measure off 5mm. I didn't need to cut 2 pieces actually, but never mind, I have done. So that's one leg there, and another 5mm. Like that, and then, if I understand this correctly, we just push these onto the end of the motor, like that. That would appear to be what they're getting at, and it just needs a fairly short piece, and it goes on that one there. And if we move all this crap out of the way, we have one completed Microbug with a wheel at the back. So, will it work? Right, the bug is complete with fresh batteries, with the switch in the off position. Will it work? Well, let's find out. Let's first of all bring you out a bit like that. Try and clear this off, because for all I know it's going to shoot off in a million directions. Get rid of some of this crap so it doesn't spew that all over the place. Right, okay, so there it is. Put it in the center and power it on. Wish me luck. Oh, whoa, that is ridiculous. It is going everywhere. I kind of like that. That is fantastic. Now let's pick it up. You can see both of the motors go in there. Both of the LEDs are lit up, but you may not be able to see that. Let's darken it up a bit, because it's supposed to follow light, which is what the light emitting diodes are doing, or whatever they're doing. And yes, you can see there it is. Now I've got a lamp just here, and it's going towards that lamp. So let's, oh, is this, oh, it's dead. What's happened? Oh, oh no, now that's interesting. Okay, now because my main light source is coming from that direction, if I face it in this direction where there's not so much light, it doesn't do anything. So if let's put that over there, the light source is there, so let's turn it towards the lights. Yeah, there it goes, and it's off towards the light source. Excellent. So that's what it does, it goes towards light. Turn it away from light, it goes dead. So I've got a torch here. Let's light up the torch. And yeah, there you have it. Is it gonna follow the light? It was kind of trying to follow the light. Yes, it is following the light. It's just very fun. What a fun little project. I like that. That is great fun. Right, you get the idea. It's quite fast, and if you've got I can't imagine it would work too well on carpet, but you never know. That is a lot of fun. So there she has some success with the Velleman running a Microbug that seeks out light. And if you noticed that it was actually, wherever the light is coming from, it will light up that antenna or that LED, so you know theoretically which direction it's trying to go into. That's great. Now that was a nice little project. Let me zoom in, whoops, and show you the construction. Very simple project. Everything is through hole, and that little rear wheel, which I think is very clever use of components to make a simple wheel. That's very effective, and there she goes. It works absolutely fine. That is the Velleman running a Microbug which seeks out light. So I hope you enjoyed that build. I know that I haven't done many videos for quite a long while, certainly not consistently, but I do hope you enjoyed this one. And yes, I will make future videos, but I don't know how quickly they will come. They will come as quickly as they do is the answer to that one. So I'm going to wish you all the best, and I hope by the time my next video comes out, coronavirus will have had its arse well and truly kicked, or certainly well on the way to it, and we can get back to a bit of safety and normality. So keep safe, and we'll see you again very soon. Cheers for now.